Welcome to the Yellow Duke Scotland. In this video I would like to talk about a Scottish novel called His Bloody Project by Graeme Macrae Burnet. Now, this book is a very interesting book, and I don't normally do Yellow Duke videos on novels, but in this case I'll make an exception because I think this is an extraordinary book, a book that has intrigued me, and I would like to talk about it. First thing to say is that it is a novel, although it's got the structure of a non-fiction book. In fact, I was about halfway through it when I thought, I think I've got this wrong. I think this is an actual non-fiction book, but no, it's definitely a novel, although it's disguised as a sort of non-fiction book. So what's so great about this novel that I want to make a video about it? Well, I think it's got a great moral question at its heart. Certainly for me, I feel that this book asks a very profound question, and that is, can murder actually be justified? I'll come back to this later, but what this book really is, according to many people who've read it, is an exploration of why this character, the main character in the book, commits 3 murders. What are the reasons for it? And yes, that is the one of the big questions. But I think I've got a even bigger question in my reading of it. That's the way I think about it. Very briefly, this is a novel about. It's set in the 19th century, 1869, I think it is, and it's set in the village, or the township rather, of Kildui near Applecross in Wester Ross. A boy, 17-year-old boy, called Roderick Macrae. He is accused, and in fact he confesses to the murder of 3 people. So it's not a murder mystery, this book, because we know from page 1 that he did it, and he's guilty. There's no question about that. And it's just an exploration of why he might have done it. It's set up in in various chapters that are like the confession. He writes a confession. There's medical reports. There's a newspaper account. That's right, and there are witness statements. Things like this, sort of like documents that are presented, in which we're trying to see why this chap committed the crime. See, the very beginning of the book, it's really kind of strange, because the author tries to make out he was doing some research into family history, and he came across this document by accident, and he explored further and found further documents about this crime that was committed in the middle of the 19th century in the Highlands. And so it's presented like that, and as if it's a sort of a piece of historical research or something, but it's not. But anyway, this Roderick Macrae, he's 17 years old. He's committed these murders, and it's all an exploration of why he might have done it. Now, during the course of reading the book, you see the conditions in this West Highland community at the time. It's a very hard life these crofters lead, and it's very difficult for Roderick and his father and his siblings to eke out a living in that community, and they're oppressed by the constable of Kildui, this chap called Lachlan Broad, who's a bully. He's a horrible character. He very unlikable, and he metes out very harsh treatment to Roderick Macrae and his father and his family, and there doesn't seem to be a way out for Roderick. He and his father, there are several different incidents that occur that lead up to the murder, but he and his father are trying to complain. There's an incident where they try and complain to the factor and the laird of the estate, but they don't get through to them. They're just, the laird and the factor are just not interested in hearing their story or their complaint. And the boy, Roderick Macrae, he hates the humiliations that his father is being put through, and eventually there comes a notice of eviction for this family. They're behind on their rent, but they can't really do anything about it. They just can't make much of a living from the croft. They get no help. In fact, the attempts they try and improve their situation are thwarted by this evil constable, really, Lachlan Broad. He's a horrible chap, and the boy Roderick conceives of a plan to murder Lachlan Broad. In the course of the murder, he kills 2 children as well, who get in the way, and he's on trial in Inverness for it, and the question in the whole book is, like, why did he do such a horrible thing? Now, it's thought he might be insane, but I think we're supposed to say, no, not really. He's a little bit of an odd character, this Roderick. He's very intelligent, but he's uneducated as well. He's got his odd quirks, but I don't think he's insane. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think he's really evil either, although some people think he is. I come to the conclusion in the book, but there is no official conclusion. I think the author is very clever here. He just leaves it open. But my conclusion, I come to the conclusion that, well, the conclusion I come to is that I don't really have a conclusion. Normally I would say a murder like the one he commits is just inexcusable, and he deserves to hang. But in his case, with the story of the conditions of his life, the particular circumstances his family were under the suffering from this cruel brute, this Lachlan Broad, I feel an awful lot of sympathy for Roderick, and I even think his murder could be justified. And that's the conclusion that unsettles me, because how can you come to such a conclusion? I don't really like it. I'm no fan of violence being sort of justified in certain cases under certain conditions. You know, a lot of people will come out and say this in the modern world with all our troubles. You know, sometimes violence can be justified. I'm not a fan of that generally, but in this story, I come perilously close to actually saying this, because I've got such sympathy for the character. I don't know what else he could have done. Well, there's only one other thing he could have done, and that is just to submit to the conditions, just to accept his fate, to accept that he's living under oppressive conditions. He can't do a thing about it. There's no one there who will listen to his complaint. He has no redress at all. They're not giving him a chance to earn a proper living. The church, or the Calvinist church at that time in the Highlands, on the side of the landlords, of course, they don't even offer much in the way of hope. If you suffer misfortune, it's God's will. If you protest about social conditions, you're rebelling not only against the social order, you're rebelling against the divine order. He's trapped. So it's either total humiliation or murder. I think this is the moral choice that Roderick is faced with, and he chooses murder of this brute who's humiliating his family. And you know, I understand that. I understand it in the book. Although when I stand back from this, I think I can't possibly take that position. But then I find that I sort of am, and that unsettles me. This is why I think this book is so great, because very few books unsettle me like this, because I'm usually quite firm in my convictions, and I know right from wrong. I know good from bad most of the time, and this book is something that has really challenged my assumptions about morality, and therefore I say this is excellent. This is one of the most interesting novels I think I've read in a very long time, and it's ever since I read it quite some time ago actually, but I've thought about it ever since I've read it. I thought about the issues it involves, and I think that's the sign of a great book, when you're still thinking about it, you know, a long time afterwards. So that's a different kind of video for me, but I might well actually review a few other Scottish novels in future, because there's quite a few that I like, but that's this one, His Bloody Project by Graeme Macrae Burnet.